Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. Today's a very special episode on how to gain more trust and intimacy in your relationship. We have special guests Marla Mattinson and Julian Kolker, the intimacy experts. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma, and as always, when we have guests, we get really excited. As our listeners know, it's not every week that we have guests, and today is super special because it's not one, but we have two. So I'm excited to bring them on in just a moment, but before we do, I'm going to check in with Nick here. What's going on with you?
All kinds of things.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of everything these days. Just a little bit of everything.
Are they a little bit of all of your favorite things or a little bit of all your non-favorite things?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I really categorize them as favorite or non-favorite. They're things that must be done to move the mission forward. And I guess if I think about it, there are some things that I do enjoy more than others. I guess that's a truism. But no, I hadn't really thought about it that way. It's just quite a few. It's like I'm really having to come back to the foundations and the simplicity of my tools to keep myself on track. And that's been the theme for me because it is such a varied thing. Like I've got one client in particular that's very challenging, like just some really interesting things going on in this human's life. And so that's one aspect of it. There's, some business things and stuff that is like totally not my zone of genius. And then some other things that are coming along that are, really exciting about coming and just kind of keeping all the balls in play. So it's exciting. And to me with that volume of things, it's really just about like foundations. Like, how do I get back to the simplicity of just really making sure that I'm taken care of so that I can, stay in that and keep everything and everybody moving forward in a really positive way.
Including you and me.
We're talking about one of my very favorite topics. I'm excited. I have a feeling I'm going to learn some things today.
I think we're both going to learn
I'm excited about that because I love talking about relationships.
I know. Well, this is going to be a special treat for our listeners who know that Nick and I not just are co-hosts together, but we've been partners in life and crime and ups and downs for
10 years.
10 years. He's the one with the numbers, not me.
Almost
lifetimes for sure. So I know that we're going to have fun and we're going to get some amazing information. And let's do this. I'm going to bring on two amazing humans and souls. The first time I met the woman of this couple, I was so taken by her brilliance, how poised, how kind, how giving. And the second time, I haven't really had a chance to talk with her partner. And when I saw him, I was like, oh man, they are just like perfect, divinely positioned for each other. And that is Marla Mattinson and Julian Kolker. And they are relationship and intimacy experts, and they really focus to help entrepreneurs. And without any further ado, let's get them on and learn more about Marla and Julian. Welcome to Illumination Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are so excited to be here. We're smiling with huge smiles on our faces listening to the two of you right now.
Yes.
Well, I know that you do a lot of interviews, and I was just curious, like, when was the last time you actually were with another couple?
Ooh, when was
I can tell you guys are already reading us. Like,
oh yeah, I know, we're digging it. I can't remember the last time we were interviewed by another couple, but it has happened.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, tell us, let's just start with what's been so recent. You had mentioned in one of your emails that you just finished a retreat in Big Sur. And so I have a feeling if you share a bit with our audience, they're going to get to know more about what you do through that most recent experience.
Ooh, well, Yes, Big Sur in California is one of the most gorgeous locations for transformation or relaxing or pretty much anything.
Mhm.
And we were staying at the Post Ranch Inn. And if you haven't had a chance to go there or stay there, definitely make time for that.
Writing it down.
Yes, Post Ranch Inn, huge, amazing. And the name of the retreat is called Harnessing the Power of the Unseen World.
Mm.
So that was the retreat that we were leading for one participant, for one individual client that we have.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And so it was all about learning how to navigate the world basically without your actual sight, coming
Mm.
from a location internally to really harness that power of calling into manifestation what you truly desire and seeing what you actually call into manifestation by what actually shows up in your life. So that was the focus of that particular retreat. We lead a number of different types of retreats. That was the one.
Oh, I love that. The external world is mirrored by our internal alignment or lack thereof. So, oh my gosh, that's just, I'm geeking out all over.
Yeah. And for me, the unseen world, like it makes me think of the unseen laws. Like there's these all permeating, when we talk about universal laws and law of karma and things like that, they're invisible, right? You don't ever see that, but they guide our lives in such profound ways. That sounds like a part of that, like that introspective quality. Is that like, tell me more. Like, I want to know more about unseen.
It's a huge part of it. It's actually the foundation of our work together and our lives together because we feel what's happening in our lives. And if we don't pause to take enough time to actually feel it individually, then what we do is we just sort of throw our energy on our partner, on our business, and we force our way through our lives. And we don't use the laws, the universal laws, to our benefit and for the benefit of others. We're using them haphazardly. And so on our retreat, it's a real immersion and experience of, the universal laws seem sort of abstract until you put them into action. And so it's a very experiential retreat. And at the moment, you're feeling, and probably the listeners hopefully are feeling, the power of Julian's presence without his words. And this is part of what we do, which is holding space for others. And it's a very important role. Julian coined a specific term for it.
I call it the power beta.
Oh, I love that, dude.
So what this is we are, as power betas, we are in service in our strength. Being in service in weakness is not really service to the greater good of all. By being the power beta and being able to be flexible and adapt to my alpha woman,
Bam.
who, as you've already heard, is one of the most articulate and brilliant human beings on the planet. And so I can easily slide and support her vision and be supportive of her. And then when my vision is strong, she is able to also play her version of the power beta and allow me to then be the alpha. And we kind of go back and forth like the clutch of a car.
I love that. It's like you innately understand the energies between the two of you. And I can imagine this is what you help couples do as well.
Absolutely. Marla and I call it the union. So Marla and I together form our union. And right now, our union is having a conversation with your union.
In the unseen world and in the seen world. So all this juiciness and creativity and sensitivity flowing between us, and also to all the listeners who are in union, and to all the listeners who are individuals walking around on earth wanting to be in union. And so we're modeling energetically, physically, spiritually, intellectually what union really means when you have it in flow. And when people feel that, they feel the sense of what's possible. And because Julian and I use our relationship as an experiment in life, as a workshop, as a working laboratory in service of our couples and in service of our couples yet to come, that workshop is it's like a way to play with the energy and share it in both, the seen world through podcasts and through videos and whatnot, and through the unseen world, which is just walking around in our daily life. We're modeling what's possible.
So just so I understand, is it like, would you say that harmony is synonymous with that flow that you're talking about?
Ooh, well, what do you mean by harmony, Nick?
Well, I just mean like things being they're being in sync and in conjunction with one another, working towards that highest goal rather than in conflict and friction.
Well, it's interesting you say conflict and friction. Well, we actually use all of our conflict to actually go deeper in connection. Every time we have some disagreement, it's an opportunity for us to get vulnerable, to get connected with self, and then to be vulnerable enough to then get vulnerable to reach out to your partner. The vulnerability piece is really important, but it's a vulnerability in strength, not vulnerability in weakness. And vulnerability, like you said, Nick, with harmony, it really does. It does have to be harmonious and in sync and integrated in order to really have the impact that we want to have.
Yeah. I think I understand. It's like, I think there's a deeper layer there that you just highlighted, is that the conflict is actually part of that harmony. It's a returning to that harmony.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there's like this flow, this flow that happens when you are in harmony, you're in sync, you're in this fluid place together, and the business is flowing and everything is feeling on point. And then something happens.
Never. Never.
I don't know what happened, but like a sniper came out and took me down. I don't know. And my personal gets activated.
Yeah.
And somehow I feel like, maybe Julian is against me and not for me, or, my needs aren't being met. And I get really, pokey or negative. And when that happens, not if, right? But when that happens, we have an agreement that we will rest in surrender of the union of our union together, which is way stronger than each of our individual selves. We will rest in the union to remember to activate our universal selves, our God selves. And so when I get negative, Julian usually will bring play into the fold.
Yeah, play is the ultimate neutralizer for anger.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I could see that too, Julian. We didn't have a lot of time to talk, but you have such a sparkle in your eye. And we do a certain thing with clients and couples called the Ultimate Life Tool. And there's one style that is called effervescent, and it's when someone's really tapped in. And you guys both have that, and it's a place to come to, I don't know, reorganize or like bring that fun in, that sparkle, that reminder. So I love that. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And another thing that I noticed too is when you're talking about couples in business or entrepreneurial couples, they're going to have a quality of leadership about them. And what you talked about was how, and I'd kind of like to go into this a little bit more, if you don't mind, is talking about that play between when one is leading and the other is allowing that, or when the other is, and playing back and forth with that, because when both are trying to be the leader, it creates a lot of conflict.
Or so you mean like I'm not always the leader, Nick? Is that what you said? Just kidding.
In your own mind, Kisma, you are always the leader.
You're always the leader. You're always.
That's a great question. Yeah. Please help.
Was that the right answer? Did I give the right answer? You're always the leader. I love you.
100%. You got it, Nick.
Got it. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Here's the thing. This I think is one of the foundational pieces in a partnership when you're in business with your love. And there has to be one alpha leading at any given time. And so if we have the old traditional structures of an alpha person and then a beta person, it's implied somehow that the beta is weaker in some way than the alpha, which is not the case. It is one person is leading at any given time, even when you're co-facilitating. And then the alpha really is the one with the strongest direction in the moment. And that's the person that takes the lead. then there's this flow that happens when you have generosity at the foundation of what you're practicing together, where I'm constantly feeling for when does Julian have a natural contribution that's going to add value to whatever the conversation is, whether we're coaching together with a couple or whether we're at a restaurant or wherever we are, whatever we're doing. When is that natural contribution arising? And then he takes the lead and he's the alpha and I'm the power beta. And then in general, in our relationship, Julian is the alpha and I'm the power beta in the relationship, where his drive and direction is leading and I'm in support of what he's doing and what his desires are. And then if I have a strong direction or something to contribute to add value to the relationship, then I'm leading at that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's really a cool interplay. It speaks to the amazing dynamics of any relationship,
Yeah, it's kind of like, it reminds me of like one person's the conscious mind, the other's the subconscious mind, and you kind of go back and forth giving direction in this huge energetic entity to create. It's pretty amazing. And my question is this what couples who come to you with challenges, things they want to solve or resolve, would you say this is the main point of interest that you start to work on? Or is there something else that you see that really permeates couples, especially in this entrepreneurial space?
There's so much. We could have a slumber party. But one thing that most couples come to us with is they want to learn how to use their drive for success, their ambition, and their growth mindset as a way to actually live their lives that way. And they don't realize that's really what's going on, but that's really, they want to sort of uncover their true divinity together and live a growth-based life together. And typically they come with very small problems. They're not huge, massive problems. They know, most entrepreneur couples understand that there's going to be some, stumbling blocks along the way, and they handle that. And typically the couples that come to us, they have a business that's thriving and they just haven't spent as much time on their relationship to grow it as much as the business. And they want to learn how to bring their relationship up to the level of what their business is striving for.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. And that's the one thing about entrepreneurs is they're incredibly resourceful, as far as, just making things work, rolling with the punches. And it sounds like then it's more a matter of like, well, they've brought that into their business and that's probably the reason that they still have a relationship. Because building a business is intense. And if you don't have that quality of resourcefulness within your relationship to some degree, that's going to be, I don't know if that's going to make it. But if they've made it that far, they already have that. Now it's more a matter of like, okay, well, how do we really bring that into this dynamic between the two of you? Do I kind of understand that?
Yes. And a sense of resilience, right? It's resourcefulness and resilience and creativity. And when a couple realizes we want more of that in our relationship, the thing is that it's not intuitive how to bring all of that ambition and drive and resilience and resourcefulness into your relationship, because it's not the same set of tools to use in business, building that together and building your relationship. They're actually slightly opposite. So you have to learn how to navigate relationship land versus business land.
Can you give an example on that, how they're opposite?
Sure. Well, so it might be obvious, but when I'm driving the ship here, right? If I'm driving the ship in the business and I am a natural problem solver, I look for where is the trouble in this and how can we transform that into something amazing. I'm typically doing that by myself in my own internal land, in my own internal landscape. And I'm not necessarily including Julian in that process. And so my mastery will come out and then Julian will have his material arise to bring his value in and contribute. And that will be the flow. In the relationship, however, It is right.
Enter stage right.
It's a little different.
It's more of a collaboration in a different way, where I don't assume that I'm driving the boat. In fact, I'm not. It is the union that is driving it. So we are always asking, what is in service of our union? Because my personal is going to want certain things. Like, I love to demand things. I like to say, hey, babe, can you go do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? As if he's my assistant. And that is the fastest way to kill romance and passion.
Yeah.
And so when I realize I'm doing that, I'll stop. But sometimes I don't realize I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I get an opportunity to lovingly remind her. And the way that I found to be the most playful or the most effective is to do it with play and with silliness and joy and singing and dancing.
I love that.
Making her like diffuse all the anger in the moment so that together we can each take 100% responsibility for the situation at hand. I'm taking 100% responsibility for the situation and she's also taking 100% responsibility for the situation. There's an overlap.
An overflow, and that's a surplus, and that's abundance.
It's amazing.
And like, for example, here's a great example. Every once in a while, I don't know if this happens for you or for any of the listeners, but I wake up sometimes with some negativity.
Oh, no,
sometimes,
never.
Once every 20 years or more than that. And so I'll wake up with some negativity and I won't fully realize it, even though I have a full gratitude practice and everything. And so sometimes we'll be getting ready together. We have a lovely bathroom where we both get ready. And I'll ask a question to Julian, and it's clearly a trap. Okay. It's clearly like, if you walk down this path, you're going into the dark forest. Don't go. And so Julian,
I will just pretend like the question was not asked. And then what are you most excited about for this afternoon, later today? What are you looking forward to later today? As if I didn't even register the question. It didn't exist. I'm just going to ignore it.
Wow. That's some ninjutsu right there, man. That is ninja.
But then, Marla, do you feel unheard? Because I could see where normal couple, #humans such as us, if I did that, if I was like setting up Nick and he
Not
just
that you've ever done
never, no. But, and then he rose above into the ethers of heaven and shot back with something like that. I'd be like, damn, he not only got me, he didn't hear me. And I would just go like, how do you not go sideways? You just know this about each other?
So here's the strategy, okay? And it's pretty fantastic.
Okay.
You asked if I would feel unheard.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. My ego feels unheard. My personal feels unheard. And part of me will then want to bring another question, like a dirty question that's going to make go deeper and activate him. So part of myself, the small self, will want to generate more in order to go down that road. However, my God self doesn't care that he didn't answer the question. In fact, I'm massively grateful that he didn't fall into that trap, because I actually don't want to stay in that negativity.
Right.
I want a partner who's going to beautifully call me on something in a way that is both annoying and makes me take a look at, wait, I must have asked him a question that he didn't want to answer. Why doesn't he want to answer that question? Oh, because it's a leading question that's going down a road that's going to harm our union and it's going to take a withdrawal out of the union. Am I ready to take a withdrawal from the union? No. I want to make a contribution. And by him choosing consciously to give me the benefit of the doubt, to say, Marla must be in a funky place right now. Instead, I'm not taking that bait. I'm going to swim around that hook, and I am going to just put loving vibes and playful vibes, because his God self doesn't care that I was asking a leading question. And my God self is so grateful that he wasn't willing to take the bait. And then I have to go internal. I choose to say, okay, now how do I want to move forward? And then I'll I'll say something from where I'm at. So every once in a while, I'll just say, I'm excited or looking forward to just finishing getting ready. Like that's the best I can do. Okay? And then sometimes I'll be able to really just totally pivot and go right into the play, give him a big hug and say, "Oh, you didn't take the bait. Good job. Good job. We win.
Yay.
We win. Yeah.
That's
Everybody's a winner.
It sounds like there's an ideal. This union is like an ideal that is not just higher than each of your humans, but it serves humanity. And so for our listeners that aren't, I'm sure that people are going to be looking you up and we're going to make sure everyone knows how to do that. But it's like having this initial agreement. We're here for a higher path and purpose. There's an entity around, like that union to me is so beautiful. And when that is honored, it's so easy to drop the ego and have some objectivity, to examine ourselves. Well, what am I really trying to do here? And then lift it higher. Does that make sense? Am I getting the right pulse on this?
You're totally nailing it. You're nailing it completely. It's our union not only serves us, it also serves our wider family, Julian's beautiful, amazing 8-year-old daughter, other unions, all other family members and friends, and it really serves humanity. And it gives our relationship a purpose. So it's not just, oh God, we're in another argument or another conflict. It's, what can I personally learn from how I'm showing up in this conflict to grow and have my own personal transformation, to claim more and more responsibility for who I am in the world. And when we're both consciously doing that, it has a purpose in our conflict to turn it into connection so that we can use it as a way to know ourselves more. Because now somebody can say to me, "Gosh, Marla, you're so controlling," or, whatever they say to me. And I go, "Yeah, I know." Is it bothering you?
Yeah, right.
So we use the relationship as a tool for personal transformation. And that's what we teach all of our couples. And that's what we train all of our relationship experts who mentor with us. That's how to transform your relationship into that vehicle for your own personal growth.
Yeah, that's
I love it.
Yeah, and that's so foundational to what we believe about relationships
Absolutely.
too. It's like, yes, there's the higher thing, and that's all beautiful. And at the end of the day, it's like one of the best reasons ever to be in a relationship is to really have that vehicle for yourself, to look at yourself from a new perspective, and to have somebody that can help you hold the vision of not only of your highest, but of the highest of you together, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. Which takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to speak up to your partner and not fall down the rabbit hole where they're going down in their own personal ego journey.
Yeah, it's to not take it on. When one can speak to the other, like, okay, I'm going to say this, be vulnerable, like Julian was saying, but also for the highest and best. And whatever the reaction is, hopefully it's either going to be the play or the having this conscious understanding. If it's not, to not take that on. I know that's tricky for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's an interesting dance. But when you explain that, first, I want to really honor your ability, Marla, to break these things down in very clear ways.
Yeah.
It's really cool to hear you talk about this. So
I second that, Nick. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like it takes some of the things that are floating around in my head, and you just you just put it right in order. It's so cool, and really break down that process. So thank you. And then secondly is I think I understood from that too is a little bit more about what you mean by that power beta, because in that role, Julian's actually taking the leadership role, but he's doing it in kind of a sly way to guide everything towards the highest when he steps back and just asks another question. It's I don't know, in extreme ownership, it's called leading up the chain of command as well. But yeah, but it's leading from a different position, and it's still there. That is, it's ninja for one. So I'm taking that one to the bank. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
But secondly is that it actually, like you said, it requires courage to do that.
Yeah.
It really does involve vulnerability.
Absolutely. The hardest part, the where the real courage comes in is when what we call double activation, which is both partners are depleted of the bandwidth necessary to be in support of the other. They're caught in what we call the personal lens, right? It's all about me, and I'm in survival mode, and I'm not able to be in service of anybody else at this minute. And when both partners get to that place, it really takes real trust in and real courage, real courage, and giving your partner the benefit of the doubt when you're fully activated that way, and surrendering into the union to know that you're going to both get through this together. In this moment, everything is shit. And guess what? We're going to get through this together and land on the other end in connection and deeply bonded.
That takes some faith, right?
It really does. It really does. And here's the thing. When we're in our personal lens, the truth that we speak is coming from the personal. And so what I need and want and desire when I'm in my smaller, personal, egoic self is very different from what I want and need and desire from when I'm in my universal God self.
Right.
And as soon as either one of us can connect with that larger macro vision, larger community, what are we doing right now? Why are we in this conflict? As soon as one of us can connect to that larger expansiveness, then we can activate the God self inside, even for a moment, and it just drops it down.
Yeah.
About 10 notches, right? And that double activation where we're both in our personal lens starts to soften. And then we start to use that to climb out together. And this is the thing, we love the visual of the obstacle course or the mud run. I don't know if you've ever done a mud run.
No, and I won't, but I've watched them.
Okay, but they're fun to watch too. Everybody gets dirty on the other end. You're coming out dirty, but you got a big smile on your face, and you went ropes course and you went through the tires and you held hands the whole time together, and you turn around and you say, look what we went through.
Yeah.
And now let me help you get that mud off your face, and let's go take a nice bath together.
I love that.
All about collaboration.
Yeah.
Really collaborating with each other in all aspects of our lives. A true partner is, somebody that you can bring anything to, and they can hear anything that you have to say. I'm not afraid that, I got to say this to Marla and she's not going to be able to hear it, or I don't want to say it because I'm afraid of what her reaction may be. I can collaborate with this woman on anything, and I can tell her anything, and I can hear anything from her. It's true freedom in that.
Yeah, there really is. And I know that from some of the people that I've worked with who have come to me, that can be I'm afraid to speak. I'm afraid to tell my truth. And that is, it's soul crushing when someone feels like they can't speak, or I would imagine the other person involved feels like they haven't been honored in some way. So,
there's only two reasons why someone would be afraid to speak their truth in relationship. Well, you want to hear what they are?
Yes. Please. Number one, drum roll.
That was a drum roll. Here are the two reasons. One, you don't want to hurt your partner's feelings.
Yeah.
Okay. That's number one, which, by the way, is kind of bullshit. Okay. Number two is that you don't want to deal with their reaction, which is the real reason.
Yeah.
Because either you don't know how to deal with their reaction, you're afraid that their reaction is going to lead to other consequences, like ending the relationship or causing a big drama when everything is really fine. Why even bring it up? This is so small. It's so tiny. Why would I even bring this up to cause any kind of an issue, especially if we have a time crunch on something, right? So the first reason is you don't want to hurt their feelings. That's a given. You never want to hurt your partner intentionally. But that's the personal lens. The universal lens knows that the God self can never be hurt or harmed, and that the truth of how you're actually feeling is more important than the ego of so-called damaging your partner's pride or, their own wants and desires.
I love that. What about in that conversation, the way to speak? I once heard someone said tone is everything. And right. So can you share a little bit about that from the male female perspective of tone, and when, we're letting go of the attachment of how they're going to react, not wanting to deal with it, say, okay, I'm going to deal with it, not wanting to hurt, understands for the highest and best. Then what's the tone? What's the emotion that you suggest people bring to it?
So I am often asking Marla to adjust the tone. It's
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is the best.
Yeah, there's a flavor where she's saying something with her words and she's telling me the exact opposite with her energy. And so I'm feeling the disconnect. And then since she and I are able to kind of call each other out on things in the moment, I can literally say to her, can we do that one more time? Can we adjust the tone of that just a little bit? Because the words are spot on and perfect. And I love to hear the words again, but the tone is slightly off. Can you adjust?
And what that does, I mean, if you can feel the truth of that, right? Yeah. First of all, how annoying is it when your partner asks you to change your tone?
I was just going to say,
my ego hates
super
that.
Annoying, yeah.
Super annoying. However, because we have basically made a vow together that we will always come back to growth together, that I want him to tell me that my tone is off so that I can have a true reflection of how someone else is receiving me, how I am impacting someone else in the world, someone that I care so deeply about. This is the level of growth consciousness that we practice and we teach. Because how am I supposed to know that my tone is off unless someone reflects it for me? Because if I knew that it was off, I would have already changed it.
Right.
Okay. But I want to play devil's advocate for a second of what part of the person who's receiving that, give me a second. Like I want to articulate the question correctly.
Because I'm staring at him.
There's an intense stare going on here. When somebody feels like, if one of you feels that the tone is, not right for them and they want you to adjust your tone, well, what part of that is their responsibility of how they're receiving that?
Fair question.
And maybe putting more onto it than is actually there, reading something into it that isn't really there and is just kind of doing something along those lines. Like what part of that is their responsibility?
So it's always both partners' responsibilities. So we both are taking 100% responsibility. However, at times, both of us, separately and together, will go unconscious and just go into this
default.
Yeah, a default mode. Thank you. It's the purpose of this acknowledging the truth of how I'm receiving the tone from Julian or the other way around is my own growth. So for example, when Julian says, hey babe, could you say that with a little more kindness? That's his way of saying your tone is off. And so he's either saying that from a place of asking me to dive into my own personal growth, or he's telling me because he's feeling uncomfortable, that it's making him activated in a way that is not going to serve our union. And either way, and I can feel whether or not he's activated by my tone.
Right.
In both cases, my job is to receive fully what he's saying. This is part of receiving has to do with receiving anything that is in your purview without changing it. And you look at the truth, because all feedback, this is one form of feedback. Marla, would you be willing to shift your tone to have it a little more kind? All feedback is love. And this is one of our foundational practices and foundational pieces we teach, which is, what if every single thing that came from your partner as feedback is received as love? Because he wouldn't say it. It's so much easier to just say, sure, babe, and just deal with whatever my tone is, than to actually have the courage to say, hang on a second. You said you wanted to show up as your best and highest self in every moment in our relationship and in your life. So I want to reflect for you that your tone is not showing up in that way. And I have total faith that you can and will shift so that you can experience your own mastery from a place of being really, really conscious. And so when I then turn internally and I shift into my own softening, because my ego wants to fight and take prisoners and go to the death. But instead, my higher self, my God self, will see what he's trying to do, will feel total gratitude for the fact that I'm with a partner who has the courage to tell me,
the queen,
that my tone is off. And then I go, oh my gosh, he's right.
Yeah.
And so when I turn to him and I say, babe, you're right. My tone is off. Hang on a second. And then I try again. And then with so much love and compassion, he goes, that was really good. And I think you can even soften more.
Whoa.
How annoying.
Oh my God.
Right?
That's
but
amazing.
He won't accept anything but excellence from me, which is what I requested.
Yeah.
And so then in the moment when he does it, I can either throw daggers at him or I can take responsibility for what I said I wanted. And then I can do it and I can choose to soften, which the ego internalizes as weakness, but the God self internalizes.
So it's always back to the union. It's always back to love in the heart. It's always back to the higher ideal.
Yes. And then
once both partners are doing all of that work, we're shifting together. It's a team effort. Marla's not shifting on her own. I am there in support of her. I am holding space for her. I am cheering her on for her to change so that she can be her most excellent best self, which is exactly what she wants.
And it also undoes all of the old habitual patterns of being in relationship where you couldn't speak your truth or you weren't heard or you wanted to confront your partner on something, but you just said, never mind, this is too much work. Every time Julian has the courage to say the truth to me, it's also reprogramming his brain for excellence, which is, this is the right step. It's the right step to confront this. It's not the right step to hide it and put it under.
And you reiterate that by not punishing me or making wrong anything that's done. I learn time and again that it's safe for me to speak up, stand up, because the repercussions is actually just more love and connection. So those are the repercussions that I'm all about.
Right. But Julian, you have such like a nuance about you of just coming from this loving, fun space. I had this image float through my brain of like, homes all over the world. All of a sudden now people are asking each other, could you just change your tone? And maybe not doing it like from the loving space. So like it really has to be from, it's not about control. It's about the love. And like Marla, you said, you asked for a partner that would hold you in your highest and best.
That's right. That's right. And we want to be really clear. This is what works for us in our
And you've done so much. I mean, you're the experts, right? Right.
Right. And the thing is, what we teach is for each couple to experiment with what does work, what activates the ego to attack more, and what activates the ego to soften. And so maybe play would be the worst possible thing for you and Nick, but maybe it's the best. And so you get to play with what works.
Yeah, you figure out, over time, each couple will figure out what are the best tools and techniques for their union. This is what works for us. And
I love it.
Yeah, like Mama said, this same technique may really turn somebody else,
and that's part of the deep work that both of you do with couples.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I know I have another question at least, but before we go on, just insert, how can people find you on social media? Let's make sure everyone knows, because I know that they're searching for you already.
Great. So on Facebook, Marla Mattinson, and on Facebook, Julian Kolker. And then on Instagram, we have The Intimacy Experts.
Okay, great. We'll make sure those are in the show notes.
Love to send everybody to Instagram to follow us on our Instagram. We've got some cool
things coming up on Instagram.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yeah. And people can always find us on my website, marlamattinson.com as well.
That's cool. That's great. Thank you for that. And I know we're almost out of time, but I want to know, Marla, you have a background in mathematics. Julian, you've worked with emotional intelligence. When did you two meet? How did all this come about? This amazing spiritual union between the two of you.
Yes. Well, we believe and experience that we met, I don't know, 100 lifetimes ago, something like that. So we are
reunited
in this lifetime together. And we've been together for almost a few years. And our meeting was actually quite interesting at a very deep, intimate workshop. And we just
instant magnetism.
Yes, it was. I literally saw the side of his face with his big beard, and I was never into beards, so that was not like a thing. And I just thought, oh, I think I'm in love with that guy.
I love that.
And the magnets, and that was it.
Really? That was it. It just happened.
I mean, we had 2 weeks of both kind of pretending that we were just hanging out, we're just, neither one of us wants anything serious. We're just enjoying each other's company. And, I remember one time I came back on being on a date with another girl and, came back to Marla's house because I was like, oh, that was terrible. I need to go hang out with Marla. So I was hanging out with Marla and, we were talking. She's like, you just came back from a date and this and that. And both of us felt that it was just really, we were both being silly. And so not being silly, and we just were true to ourselves and everything.
That's awesome. Did you have any of the life things to navigate? Julian, you said you have a daughter, I believe it is, 8-year-old.
I have an 8-year-old daughter, Zoe.
Oh, my daughter's name is Zoe. She's 23, though.
Yeah, Marla and I, we navigate the relationship with my ex, who's still involved in our lives because of my daughter. And all of our navigations together it's a team effort. It's collaboration
and growth.
There's nothing that together we can't do.
Right. And it was really interesting when our backgrounds, when we did come together and start exploring the depth of who we are together as a union. All of my background in mathematics and neuroscience and Julian's background in emotional intelligence just started to weave together, and our content, like the work that I have been doing for over 20 years with couples, just all came into practicum, into real experiential experience for me and for the two of us to then start developing more and more together. And that's been, I think, the most phenomenal thing about our union.
I have one question, Nick. Do you have anything else that you wanted to ask or share?
I do not.
Okay.
No,
he's absorbing it, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, no, I do have one quick question actually, because I want to understand this union, the concept of the union a little bit better. And it sounds like the agreements that you make, like Marla, one of your agreements is, or one of your requests in that is that he holds you to your highest and best. Whenever conceivably possible. So is that system of agreements? Is that what you consider the union, or is there something more to that I'm understanding?
So this is a great question. So the union is an energetic. Okay, the union is the entity of me and Julian and all of our quirks and bells and whistles and magnificence. It's the combination of the best and highest version of both of us together. And it includes the personal. It includes everything. It's completely inclusive. And there's room for our own little personal navigation to happen within the union. But the union itself is what we then decide what we want as a personal being to work on. Like, what do I personally want to work on in my life? And I bring it to the union to say, okay, I am vulnerably going to share with you that what I really want to work on is not being so bossy. Okay. So it's very tender for me to say that because I'm totally bossy. And because I'm not really in my highest self when I'm bossy. And so when I say to Julian, okay, I really want to work on not being as bossy, which means instead of not being bossy, I want to become more loving and open and gracious, etc. So what does that mean? That means I'm asking Julian to reflect for me when I am being bossy so I can catch it in the moment and feel the truth of the situation. And Julian just just brought up an example back over here on our side of one time when I got really, really bossy, and okay, I'm gonna bleep the swear word. Okay, here's what happened totally unconsciously on June 1st. Okay, so this was really recent. I said to him, "What the blank have you been doing if you didn't get my sandals?" Oh my God.
And I just laughed.
He just laughed. No, he laughed, and then he said, "Text that to you. I'm going to text that to you right now." And I was like, "Oh no, it's being, memorialized." And so I couldn't just get away with saying that. And I thought to myself, the total unconscious part of myself just said that. And it was judgmental and nasty and everything against what I try to be in the world, right? And so, but if I didn't
I didn't take the bait.
He didn't take the bait. It was amazing. And I didn't have a partner who was willing to say, "Pause, that's a nugget for you, amazing soul. And I'm going to text it to you with the date and timestamp on it so you know you said that," right? And it's like, oh my gosh, look, and then I get excited. Where did that come from? Whose voice was that? How can I integrate that even more? Like, there is a part of me that says that.
Yeah. And that holding of space and union where you get to look at that and be excited rather than feeling shame or guilt, because that's just not going to work for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So the union, I understand then the union's that's the energetic entity, and it's the system of agreements that you form together in order to support that is really something that is subservient to the energetic entity itself. Got it. That's cool. That's a really cool way to look at it. I hadn't really thought of it in those. In a certain respect, like for me personally, I've always looked at our relationship as something greater than the two of us individuals. But to have that kind of layer of clarity around that is, just personally for me, really helpful and insightful, and on a kind of geeky note, just really cool that you would think that through in that way.
I know. I love it. Oh, you guys are so amazing. I have one question before we go. Is there anything, this is something I ask all our guests, is there anything that either of you really want to do in life that you've yet to share with somebody else? I'm thinking you've probably shared it with each other because of who you are, but is there something on that bucket list that you're like, oh, I really want to do this?
I got one, but I have shared it before, but I will share it again. I have a strong desire to meet His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, in a private meeting. I don't want to be there with a big, large group of people. I'd like a very intimate, private
I can
meeting
see that happening.
with His Holiness. Anybody out there listening who would love to help me out,
okay, I love that.
So be it.
So be it. Let's have that happen. Cool. What about you, Marla?
For me, I feel like I live such an exquisite life. I pretty much do whatever I desire. And I feel that for me, what I really want is to just be the absolute most excellent version of myself, free from the fears that arise, and to just share this information and whatever is channeling through me more and more with more and more couples and individuals so that everybody can live this kind of a
you guys
life.
are gems.
Yeah.
We so appreciate your time, your energy, your teachings. I know we have some things that we can certainly look at.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it was really insightful for me personally. And it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh,
we adore you both.
Marla and
so
Julian, you can please find them on Instagram, The Intimacy Experts. They're going to have some really cool teachings and things to offer there. And to both of you, so much love. I can't wait to see you both in person again. And just keep us posted if there's anything we can do for you.
Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.